you lay one for me so I have enough money to fix my cottage? Hang on, Bingoose. Has anyone seen the gold pen?
You mean this? Just then, this handsome-looking dude rocks up on a ripper bike. I am King Goldie-Horns, and I control all the gold stuff in this land with this.
Dad!
It turns any...
Hello friends, welcome back to another video on Bluey's quest for Golden Pen. This is the old mine town. Let's start it. On a calm, sunny afternoon in their backyard, Bluey stretched her paws and looked up at the sky as if she were searching for something bigger than just another ordinary game. Then suddenly, she turned to Bingo with excitement sparkling in her eyes and said that today they wouldn't just play any normal game. Today they would become explorers, real explorers, the kind that go into unknown places filled with mystery and danger. And Bingo immediately lit up with curiosity, asking where they would go. To which Bluey paused dramatically, scanning their surroundings as if expecting a hidden world to reveal itself, while Bandit, watching nearby, jokingly suggested something boring like the laundry, making Bluey giggle and shake her head, insisting it had to be somewhere far more exciting, somewhere no one had gone before. And just as she said that, her eyes caught something unusual near the edge of the yard, something old and slightly buried. And as she walked closer and brushed away the dirt, she uncovered a worn-out piece of paper, edges curled and faded with time. And Bingo leaned in, whispering that it looked ancient, while Bandit walked over with a nostalgic smile and explained that it was actually something from his own childhood, a map he had once drawn that led to an old mine hidden deep in the bush, a place he hadn't thought about in years. And the moment Bluey heard the word mine, her imagination exploded with possibilities, treasures, secrets, hidden tunnels, and she immediately declared that this would be their adventure. And before Bandit could even finish explaining, the girls had already decided they were going, turning a simple afternoon into a journey filled with anticipation. So they packed a few things like a flashlight and snacks, and soon the three of them stepped beyond the familiar comfort of their home and into the wild edges of the bush, where the grass grew taller and the trees stood closer together, creating a path that felt both exciting and slightly intimidating. And as they walked, Bingo stayed close, her small voice occasionally expressing worry about what they might find, wondering if it would be too dark or too scary. But Bluey reassured her in the confident tone of a leader, saying that explorers always feel a little scared, but they keep going anyway. And Bandit added gentle humor along the way to keep things light, making silly comments about hungry explorers needing snacks, which made Bingo laugh and eased her nerves just enough to keep moving forward. And after what felt like a long journey filled with rustling leaves and distant bird calls, they finally reached it, the entrance to the old mine, standing quietly like a forgotten doorway into another world, its wooden beams aged and slightly crooked, the darkness inside stretching deeper than they could see. And for a moment, everything became still, as if the place itself was waiting to see what they would do. And Bingo hesitated, her earlier bravery fading slightly as she looked into the shadowy entrance, saying softly that she didn't like it. And Bluey, though still excited, also felt a small flicker of uncertainty, but chose to be brave, reminding Bingo that they were together and that made it safe, while Bandit calmly told them they didn't have to go in unless they really wanted to, giving them the choice. And after a quiet pause, Bingo took a deep breath and said she wanted to be brave. And that decision changed everything, because with that small moment of courage, they stepped forward into the mine. And immediately, the world shifted. The air grew cooler, the light dimmer, and every sound they made echoed softly around them, their footsteps bouncing off the walls as if the cave itself was listening. And Bandit turned on the flashlight, cutting through the darkness to reveal walls that shimmered faintly with tiny reflections like hidden stars embedded in stone, making Bluey gasp in amazement, while Bingo stayed close but couldn't help noticing the beauty as well. And as they moved deeper, the outside world seemed to fade away completely, replaced by the quiet mystery of the underground, where every corner held the possibility of something unknown. And just as they were beginning to feel comfortable, a sudden cracking sound echoed sharply through the tunnel, freezing them in place as small bits of rock shifted and a section of the path ahead became partially blocked, causing Bingo to gasp and grab Bluey's paw, asking what that was, while Bluey looked to Bandit with concern, wondering if they were stuck. But Bandit stayed calm, his voice steady as he reassured them that they just needed to think and work together, reminding them that real explorers don't panic, they solve problems. And with that, Bluey began looking around carefully, her earlier fear turning into focus as she suggested they might be able to go around the obstacle, while Bandit added that maybe they could climb over, and Bandit encouraged both ideas, guiding them safely as they carefully navigated the uneven rocks. Step by step, helping each other and staying close. And with each small movement forward, their confidence grew stronger, replacing fear with determination, until finally they made it past the blockage. And in that moment, something changed inside them, because they realized they were capable of handling challenges together, and the mine no longer felt like a scary place, but rather a space where they had proven their courage. And as they continued exploring a little further before eventually turning back, the journey out felt different from the journey in, lighter, warmer, filled with a sense of accomplishment. And when they finally stepped back into the sunlight, the contrast made everything feel brighter and more alive, as if they had returned from a completely different world. And Bluey smiled widely, declaring it the best adventure ever, while Bingo admitted that even though it had been scary at times, it was also exciting and worth it. And Bandit looked at both of them with pride, reminding them that the best adventures are the ones that challenge you and help you grow. And as they walked back home together, the map no longer just a piece of paper, but a memory of something meaningful. They carried with them not just the story of the old mine, but the feeling of bravery, teamwork, and the quiet understanding that even the most ordinary days can turn into something extraordinary if you're willing to explore just a little further.
Oh.
Nah. Nah. Nah.
As they walked away from the mine, the sunlight felt warmer than before, but something about the experience lingered in Bluey's mind, a quiet pull that made her glance back over her shoulder more than once, as if the old wooden entrance was still calling to her, not in a scary way, but in a curious, unfinished way. And that evening, as they sat together at home, Bingo happily talked about how brave she had been, replaying the moment she decided to go inside despite being scared, while Bandit listened with a proud smile and Chili joined in, asking gentle questions about what they saw. But Bluey remained unusually thoughtful, tracing invisible lines on the table as if she were still following the map in her head. And when Bandit noticed this, he asked what she was thinking, and Bluey admitted that it didn't feel like they had seen everything, that the mine felt bigger, like there were more paths they hadn't explored. And Bandit paused, remembering his childhood visits and realizing she might be right, because back then he had never gone very deep either, and that small idea planted a seed that grew quickly into a plan. And the next morning, Bluey woke up with renewed excitement, rushing to Bingo and asking if she wanted to go back, this time as even better explorers, more prepared and more brave. And Bingo hesitated at first, remembering the crack and the darkness. But then she smiled, saying that if they went together again, she could be even braver than before. And so, with Bandit agreeing to guide them safely, they prepared once more, packing extra supplies like another flashlight, some rope, and even chalk to mark their path, turning their adventure into something more thoughtful and intentional. And as they returned to the bush, the journey felt familiar yet different, like revisiting a story, but knowing there were still pages left unread. And when they reached the mine again, the entrance no longer seemed as intimidating as before, but instead felt like a doorway waiting to be opened further. And this time, as they stepped inside, their movements were more confident, their eyes sharper, noticing details they had missed earlier, like small markings on the wooden beams and faint tracks along the ground that hinted the place had once been busy long ago. And as they ventured deeper than before, the tunnel began to split into smaller paths, each one darker and quieter than the last. And Bluey felt a mix of excitement and responsibility as she realized they had to choose which way to go. And instead of rushing, she paused and suggested they think like real explorers, using their chalk to mark the main path so they wouldn't get lost. And Bandit nodded approvingly, letting them take the lead while staying close behind. And Bingo, though still a little nervous, began to feel proud of how much braver she had become. Even pointing out things like a faint breeze coming from one of the tunnels, suggesting it might lead somewhere open. And they followed that path, their footsteps echoing softly as the mine seemed to grow larger and more alive around them, until they reached a wider chamber where the ceiling rose higher and the walls sparkled even more brightly under the flashlight, creating a quiet, almost magical atmosphere that made them stop in awe. And in the center of the chamber lay something unexpected. Old tools, rusted and scattered, along with a small wooden cart tipped on its side, as if it had been left behind in a hurry. And Bingo whispered that it felt like the people who worked there had just disappeared.
Ah!
And Bandit gently explained that mines like these were once full of workers digging for resources, but over time they were abandoned and forgotten, leaving behind only traces of their stories. And Bluey walked closer to the cart, imagining what it must have been like.
No.
The sounds of digging, the voices of workers, the effort and hope that once filled the space. And for a moment, the mine didn't feel empty anymore, but full of invisible memories. And just as they were taking it all in, a soft rumbling sound echoed faintly through the chamber. Not as sharp as before, but enough to make them alert. And Bandit immediately guided them to stay together, reminding them that even though they were exploring, safety always came first. And this time, instead of panic, the girls responded calmly, using what they had learned earlier, checking their surroundings and preparing to move carefully if needed. And as the sound faded, they realized it wasn't a collapse, but simply the natural shifting of the old structure. And that understanding gave them even more confidence because they were no longer just reacting to fear, but understanding the environment around them. And after spending a little more time exploring the chamber, marking their path and observing everything they could, they decided it was time to head back again, knowing that adventures weren't about going as far as possible, but about knowing when to return safely. And as they retraced their steps, following the chalk marks they had left behind, Bingo smiled and said that this time it felt less scary and more like solving a puzzle, while Bluey agreed, saying that every step deeper into the mine felt like uncovering a story piece by piece. And Bandit listened quietly, realizing that what they were really discovering wasn't just the mine itself, but their own growth, their ability to face uncertainty, to think, to work together, and to come back stronger each time. And when they finally emerged into the daylight once again, the world outside felt even brighter than before, not just because of the sun, but because of what they had experienced inside. And as Bluey walked home, she held the map more carefully than ever, no longer seeing it as just a guide, but something meaningful, something that connected the past to the present. And she knew deep down that their adventure wasn't over yet, because the mine still had more secrets, more paths, and more stories waiting to be discovered. And this time, they would be ready for whatever came next. As the soft evening light settled around them, Bluey and Bingo stood once more at the entrance of the old mine. But this time, it didn't feel dark or frightening like before. Instead, it felt familiar, almost welcoming, as if it had become a part of their story. And Bluey quietly said that it felt different now, while Bingo agreed, realizing that the fear they once felt had slowly been replaced with confidence. And Bandit smiled gently, explaining that it wasn't the mine that had changed, but them, because they had faced something unknown and discovered their own bravery along the way. And as they stood there for a moment, the memories of their journey filled the silence, the echoes of their footsteps, the challenges they overcame, and the way they stayed together through it all. And the old map that once seemed like just a piece of paper now felt like something much more meaningful, something that had guided them not just to a place, but to a feeling of courage and trust. And as they began walking away from the mine, their steps were lighter, their hearts full, and Bingo happily asked if they could come back again someday, to which Bluey smiled and said that explorers always return, while Bandit playfully suggested that maybe next time they could find an even bigger mystery, sparking excitement in Bingo as she imagined new adventures waiting ahead. And as the three of them continued walking home together under the warm, fading light, the narrator reflects that what began as a simple game had turned into something unforgettable, a story of curiosity, fear, bravery, and family, and that sometimes the greatest adventures aren't about discovering hidden places or treasures, but about discovering who you become during the journey, and how even the smallest step into the unknown can change you in ways you never expected, leaving behind not just memories, but a quiet strength that stays with you long after the adventure is over.